Well, Razorback fans, it was another rough weekend for the Razorback basketball team as they are now 0-3 to start SEC play. Coach Cal still has faith. Should we? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend, staying warm. I know the snow, a lot of places starting to melt and everything, but definitely was a lot of winter weather, and hopefully everybody stayed safe. Razorback basketball, as we know, lost to Florida. And I want to go through the game real quick and then have kind of a message. I guess we'll hear from Cal, too, and one of the messages that he had to say, and then we'll get into a little bit of the thoughts behind it. I was there at Bud Walton Arena. Florida is a top 10 team, number 8 in the country, and Arkansas lost 71-63. Frustrating game at times, no doubt. And there was a few, bright spots here and there. There were some good things that were done by Arkansas, but at the end of the day, they just didn't do enough. And this one, as far as leading scores go, Adou Thiero had a quiet 17 points. Went 4 of 10 from the field, 9 of 12 from free throw line. Did foul out of the game, but had 3 rebounds, 1 block shot, 1 steal, and that was all in just 20 minutes a game. So pretty efficient for Adou Thiero. Boogie Fland, not as efficient as when it came to shooting. He was 4 of 13. He did have 15 points, but was able to at least have 4 assists, only 1 turnover, 3 rebounds, and throwing in a steal there as well. And then Jonas Adou was the other double-figure player. 11 points, 4 of 5 from the field, so pretty efficient there. Had 9 rebounds, 2 assists, did have 2 turnovers, but 3 block shots. So pretty solid game out of Jonas Adou. DJ Wagner, not so much. 9 points, but 3 of 11 from the field, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Didn't have any turnovers either. Had a steal, but just, 3 of 11 is going to kill you. And someone I want to give a shout out to is Trevon Brazile. Trevon Brazile has not really gotten enough credit. I know that the team is not winning as many games as they need to be and should be. And so that's going to be kind of thrown to the wayside as far as any sort of positivity. But I do really, really love what Trevon Brazile has done. He could easily be out there like we've seen previously with him just jacking threes and whatnot, and he has not done that. He has made the most. He played 27 minutes in this game, had 7 points, but 2 of 3 from the field. Also had 6 rebounds and 2 block shots and also 3 steals. So dude's just playing really good, a really good brand of basketball. But the problem is, folks, is that's where about it ends. Carter Knox had 4 points, and he went 1 of 7 from the field. Did have 4 rebounds, but it's not really on him to perform that way. The biggest disappointment, I don't even think it's close, and everybody knows exactly what's going on, is Nelly Davis. Nelly Davis had 0 points. He went 0 of 8 from the field, 0 of 5 from three-point land, while also having 3 turnovers. And no assist. Nightmare game. That was the first time I've ever heard, folks, and you could say it's wrong or not, but it's in the moment and it's in the game. That was the first time that I've ever heard a few boo birds come out when a player was about to check back into the game because they were playing so horrible. And that's where it was with Nelly, especially the expectation given, especially how much he's making in NIL. There's an expectation that people have, and so those came out. It was just bad. I mean, again, Florida's a good team, top 10 team in the country. And, it's not sitting here like you lost to the worst team in the SEC or anything like that. But that's 2 now at home that you felt like you were in a good position to win and probably should have won. Because Arkansas doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. Like, they only had 8 turnovers in this game. They had 2 in the second half. Had 10 assists, so they had more assists than they had turnovers. But when you shoot 18 of 60 from the field, which is 30%, and then 3 of 16 from three-point land, which is 18% or 19%, and then 24 of 35 from the free throw line. You shot the free throw, went to free throw stripe 35 times and only hit 24. That's 69%. Nice. It's going to be tough to win a lot of those games, if not any of those games. Because Florida didn't just set the world on fire either. They had 10 turnovers. They shot only 39% from the field, 28% from three-point land. So it's not like they just had this overwhelming, man, just they're so good. You just didn't shoot well. You didn't shoot well. You didn't get your points. Your offense is anemic, and it just looks bad. So now it becomes about being 0-3 in SEC play and where really it's going to go from here and how does it go from here. Well, here's John Calipari. We'll play a clip here and then a clip in the next segment, but this is his clip and just talking about a few things that went down in the game and about leadership and just a lot of the things that they need to fix and correct.
Some of it, and it's me not knowing them, but it's also there are other teams around the country that got new teams and they're playing better, but we didn't get to scrimmage. So all that stuff starts adding up. So our execution isn't all there, but we don't turn it over. We're not a team that comes down and we get 17 turnovers. But we miss a lot of shots and a lot of free throws for some reason. And is it confidence? I mean, to build confidence, I can be a cheerleader and do all the stuff I'm doing and tell them I'm here for you. I'm going to help you. The staff is here. But you got to demonstrate it to yourself. You got to go in that game. And there's one way of building that. Just stay in the gym. Grind it. This is hard. They all had expectations individually. And then you have team expectations. This is hard. And that's why it's my job. I got to keep leading. I got to lead. And I got to be strong through this. And as you know, I haven't been through a bunch of these stretches. This stretch could keep going for a while. And I got to be stronger than them. And I got to let them know this is all part of it. Teams go through this. I think there's an NBA team everybody's screaming about right now. Celtics? Teams go through it. I've been through stuff, but again, one thing I want to say, the crowd was great today. We need that plus every game we play here because we got to steal some stuff here. That was a top 10 team. We're looking at like we were, that's a top 10 team. We did good stuff to them. We created good shots and good opportunities at the rim and free throws. We did some good stuff. Not enough. Not enough. Now we got to figure out what enough is.
So, I mean, again, he says the right things. He knows what to say and how to say it. And I don't disagree with him when it comes to the first off, crowd was good. It was the best crowd it was of the season. Still wasn't, perfect or anything. Still had some empty seats, but it was still good. The energy was there. So that was a part of it. But on top of that, too, they did do some good things. They really did. But it wasn't enough. And that's the key thing. And that's the problem, too, that Arkansas is finding themselves in this season right now is everyone understands that there are some pieces to this that have been better. There are some pieces of it that have been working. And there is the element of not being around each other for as much as they should be. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into this. But you're at the point where it's got to stop, though. The reasons behind it need to no longer be reasons. They need to be fixed and addressed. And that, in its own right, lies the biggest problem. I think bad timing of having 3 extremely difficult SEC opponents is part of it. No excuse for that, but it is part of it, like Cal said. But I also believe that the things that he talks about and trying to fix and trying to address and trying to get going and how hard it is, no doubt. But everybody else is passing you right now. Like Arkansas right now is looking like one of the worst teams in the SEC. If you look at all the other teams that have played in the SEC in 3 games, you look like one of the worst. Now, again, you may have had one of the toughest schedules of it. I think Florida would probably have the toughest schedule. But you've already lost 2 home games to SEC opponents, to which I still believe, regardless of how good they are or whatnot, you were a good enough team to beat those teams. And you've dug yourself in a hole. So the question becomes of what can this be fixed? I mean, it's as simple as that. I have been harping on it, and I know maybe a lot of you expected me to come out guns blazing today and talking about this and just getting pissed off, and I was pissed off, and I'm still irritated by it. But the thing is I try to look at it. I'm trying to take it a different approach to maybe looking at it in the grand scheme of moving forward. And also looking at it what it was of my own expectations, and also looking at it from what my own right is. Basically taking my own advice. My own advice has always been, for one, to not judge coaches based off of games, but based off of seasons. Okay? And what I mean by that is, yes, we can have some criticisms at particular games, but when it comes to whether the coach is good or not, or if the year was good or not, just wait till the entire season is over with. We've seen many examples of this happen, where there were games that people were irate, even in the Muss era especially. Had been some bad losses and started off rough, and everyone just wanted things to change, and then they ended up going to the Elite Eight, and everyone suddenly forgot about that. So that's number one. It may not be likely, but it's number one, and that's something I got to remember, and we all got to remember. Also, number two, I think it's important to also take into consideration of what my expectation was for this year. Now, you got to get to the tournament for all this to happen, 100%. And Arkansas is either barely in the tournament or not at all right now. So they have to do enough to get into the NCAA tournament. But my goal, and a lot of you probably remember me talking about this, my goal was this team to make the second weekend. Not saying they will, not saying you should predict them to. But I want to see it play out. Because here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing. If Arkansas somehow, some way, puts it together enough to get into the NCAA tournament, say if they get an 8 seed, something like that, and they get to the Sweet 16 somehow, good matchups, whatever it is, they got to that second weekend, no one's going to remember this starting off 0-3 in conference play and how bad they looked. It may be one of the bullet points of it, but no one's going to go back and revert back. This was a terrible season. It's about the end result. And I need to remember that. That's something for me. And I hope a lot of you do too. I'm not saying you can just blindly be faithful and be like, oh, this is all fine. I love getting my butt kicked all the time. I'm not saying you have to do that. I am just saying that we can be critical, we can look at it, and we can talk about it, but also understanding that the end game and the end goal is still technically within reach. This is not like college football where, hey, one loss can mean everything. This is where you have opportunities, and you have 15 games now left. You're 0-3. You got to get it going right now. But we even talked about 7-11 can get you into the NCAA tournament. You got to get it. You got to get it now. And if you want to have reasons to be hopeful, let's look at it that way. Let's see what this week holds. 2 road games, tough teams because they're all tough, but more winnable. So let's see where it goes, and let's see what they got going for them. But we'll talk more about Cal and some of the comments that he made that got some heat for him over the weekend, and we'll do that on the other side. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, all you Razorback fans out there, we got a new sponsor here, of course, on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. And I'm going to tell you, this is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you're ever going to get any money back. Now Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed. All while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live, full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I wanted to play this clip and give some discussions for it because, Cal and his press conferences are very fascinating. One, he gives long answers, but more often than not, they're not the answers to the question necessarily. They're answers of what he wants to say and what he wants to talk about. And so anytime that he gets up there and does a press conference is always, interesting. He says a lot of things that are the same and playing the hits, as a lot of those Kentucky fans say. But he had one when his opening statement that went a little lengthy and everything, but it was really a big part of it that so many people were giving him heat. And when I say giving him heat, I'm not talking about just Kentucky fans. I'm talking about national media and basketball. There was even football media guys doing it. And it was really interesting. And if maybe they had a reason and maybe they were justified, well, let's play it and talk about it and see if it was.
Top 10 team, hold them to 39% from the floor, 28% from the three, out-rebound us by 10. A bunch of those were at the end of the game, offensive rebounds. We miss a bunch of free throws, miss a bunch of layups, and we still have a chance, and then we start missing free throws. So I got to look and say, are we playing the right people? Are we playing the right way? We're getting shots. We're getting layups. We got to the free throw line. We did all the stuff we're trying to do. And then the other thing is there was emotion showed in that game in one play. What was it? He dunks it, goes to the crowd, goes crazy. And why isn't that us? Why aren't you absolutely excited about playing? I think part of it is if someone doesn't play well, they can't get out of their own self's way. But you don't have to play great. You don't even have to play good. Just defend, dive on the floor, talk, be a great teammate, chest bump, get everybody going, and you'll bounce out of that. We haven't learned that yet. I got to do a better job. We got to make some shots. Do I got to play some different people? Probably. Maybe that big lineup is the answer for us for a while. You say, well, you won't shoot it as well. We ain't shooting it well right now. So let's, we just got to figure stuff out. And like I said, disappointed. We gave ourselves a chance. And then every time it was critical, it was a missed free throw or, and in the end, I'm still trying to tell these guys, you cannot draw fouls when you're driving for layups. You have to make the layup. Don't avoid. Just go make the layup and hope they call foul. If you go in there to throw it, you're not making it and they're not calling it. And they'll tell you, we're not bailing you out. You had no chance of making it. We're still doing that. That's more high school AAU stuff. But we'll get through it. Got a tough one coming up. I didn't even know when we play. I was hoping it was Wednesday. But I knew it'd be on the road because we've had 2 homes. And all of a sudden, it is. So we got to do something tomorrow, do something on Monday, travel, and go on the road and try to get this thing right. Questions?
Okay, so there was a lot to unpack there. And, we won't have to focus on a lot of the things that he said in recapping the game because we kind of already did that. And also, when him jumping into, how they've got to be able to figure out these particular players who go down and play and how to take fouls and be able to make something happen for it too. Like all of these things together is truly about, what they got to work on and all of that. The thing that really got a lot of people fired up was that ending and how he was discussing about, I didn't know who we were playing. I thought we were playing on Wednesday, but it's Tuesday and da-da-da-da. And so people were like, oh, because Cal, who wants to hear this? Who talks about this with their job? Like, a lot of people were criticizing Cal. Now, I'll be honest. There are a lot of reasons to critique John Calipari right now and the Razorback basketball team and criticize them and dunk on them and flex on them because, trust me, they're doing it like crazy all over the place. But this was a no factor to me at all. It's John Calipari. I mean, that's kind of how he's always been. And I don't look at it to where a particular statement that he makes at the end of that answer or whatever it was, suddenly he's like, people need to be like, oh man, this guy doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, is that the reason why they're losing games is because of a comment like that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it comes down to this very, very hard and unavoidable truth, folks. If you haven't noticed, I know you have, but just to reiterate, if you haven't noticed, everyone wants you to fail miserably. You are a dog that is on the ground and they are kicking you while you're down. They are beating that dead horse. They are trying, everyone wants you and Cal to fail. Like we know Kentucky fans do. I mean, they still obsess over it. But national media, they have a vendetta against Cal. It's been very obvious. They want Arkansas and Cal to fail. There are people, not only in Kentucky, but across the SEC, that want you to fail because you got all the attention, you got all this, and then suddenly, right now, this is when you are getting kicked, and you got people saying, "Oh, we told you so," or "We should have been right," and then people are using it for their own clickbait and their own content because people will flourish to it. Because again, I think if you put that stuff on something like some adult website, some Kentucky fans would subscribe to it and go to town. But the point is that you have to understand that everybody's against you right now, and it's going to go, everything's under a microscope, and it's going to go even more so. And you just got to do your best to ignore it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You just got to do your best to ignore it. It's not ideal. It's not. And the team has to go and win, and that's what's going to help. But it's all just the bad timing of everything and the fact that you're 0-3 in SEC play. I mean, Cal's never done that. He's never started 0-3 in SEC play, ever. And it's got to get fixed, and it's got to work that way. But it's just the over-the-top nature and the over-dramatics that are going to get old pretty quickly. But, I mean, I don't have a problem with the comment he made. I have a problem with the way that the team's playing. I have the problem with them not winning games. That's what I have a problem with. But when it comes to the comments and everything that Cal was making and seeing how many people took issue with it, okay, sure. Because here's the thing. If he would have said those exact same comments when they're winning, no one would care. But when they're losing, everything's horrible and terrible, and they got to change, and it's awful. So some few additions to the Razorback football team, and one of them's returning from a different school that used to be a Razorback. So let's talk about it next here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Stay with us. All right, all you Razorback fans, attending the new 12-team college football playoff games have been an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of the past playoff games and can't wait to make new memories with the updated format, as well as the extra teams involved. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste too much time searching through thousands of tickets. Recently, I used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an upcoming game, and browsing through all the deals and everything has been pretty much a breeze. And I found great value for all kinds of seats on the venue. The Super Deal in particular stood out as being the best value for the event, and I love that you could see the views before buying in the app that shows you the total cost upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, the on-time ticket delivery and lowest price guarantee gave me complete peace of mind. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. A couple of additions. We'll start with the one that's not as interesting, or I shouldn't say not as interesting. It's interesting, but it's definitely not the crazy story that is the other one. But the first one, of course, being a tight end, a receiving tight end, and is Rohan Jones, which I don't care what anybody says. When Rohan Gaines was at Arkansas, that's my favorite name of all time. Like, Rohan is such a great first name, and I'm glad that there's another guy that has a name in Arkansas has him. I mean, this is a great all-name team for transfer portal. They got the best of them. So, but he is a former Montana State tight end, and he is 6'3", 245 pounds. And I know that's playing for an FCS, but they a team that was the runner-up there in the national championship game in the FCS as they lost to North Dakota State. But he had offers to North Carolina, Kentucky, Louisville, Houston, UCLA, Wake Forest, and a lot of others. He had 30 catches for 470 yards and 9 touchdowns. So here's the thing. He's a tight end that has all the athleticism. He's got all the prowess. He's got everything that you would possibly need. It's just a matter of, okay, that's great, but will Arkansas actually utilize him? You had tight ends on the team this past year, one of them being Luke Hasz, who was really incredible. But he just never got targeted, never got utilized. Was it a Taylon Green thing? Was it a Petrino thing? Was it just the fit? It's hard to tell, but there's no question that they lost all their tight ends and they needed to add some. They added a blocking tight end earlier with Platt, the Texas A&M tight end transfer, but this is a guy that I think is going to be really good out in the field and catching a lot of balls, and hopefully they'll be able to utilize him the correct way. So that was big. The other crazy thing, though, and the other addition was A.J. Green. Y'all remember him? No, not the one that played at wide receiver at Georgia. But the former running back, number 0, who was here at Arkansas in 21 and 22 and in 23, who transferred out, went to Oklahoma State, had an injury, didn't get to see him all season long, and he entered into the transfer portal. Well, it was weird because I think some people I remember saying that, there's a chance that he could come back to Arkansas. I was like, okay, whatever. Well, he is. He's officially transferring back to the Razorbacks. He was a former 4-star running back. He was actually listed as an athlete in some cases, but he was a running back, and he played at Arkansas, had some nice seasons and everything, and now he's returning home. But the weirdest thing is that not only is he coming on as a walk-on, which I think is fascinating, but there's been some reports that he is going to be a defensive back, not a running back at Arkansas, which, I mean, okay. But then when some of the reporting came out on social media that he was going to be a defensive back, he tweeted at him and said, RB, running back, as if like, I'm going to be a running back. So which one is he going to be? Is it going to be just a matter of what they need more? Is he going to do Iron Man where he plays both sides of the ball? I don't really know, but I think it's really cool that AJ is coming back. I always liked AJ Green. I respected him a lot because a lot of running backs would have left a lot sooner than what he did because he was not the main featured back, but I liked him as a running back. And for him to be 3 years at one school was pretty impressive. But yeah, deciding to come back to the Hogs, I think it's cool. I think he's really cool. And, he did things the right way. He was always good with as a teammate, and, he's always good with press conferences and with the media. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see what he can do, and at least interested. I know he's got that injury, so we'll see how that'll play out for him and how much of an impact that'll have. But I'm going to be fascinated by that in spring and also in the fall. Maybe he can help the Hogs. Maybe he can help them in running back room, defensive back room, no matter what room he's helping them in. He's another body, and he's somebody that is capable and that we know and that is a familiar face. So good to have him back. But we'll see how the rest of it plays out. Still got some scholarships open for the Razorbacks. We'll just have to wait and see what they do with it. But appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. Keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you then.